So we're going to be talking about the top 10 loadouts currently within Warzone after that 1.23 update that changed a bunch of various things for a lot of what people would call the meta weapons or the most commonly used weapons within Warzone. So we're breezing through a ton of information. If you do enjoy the video or learn something new, please do me a favor hitting that like button. Goal in today's video is 2,000 likes. If you're brand new, want to find your way back for more Call of Duty content, just make sure you subscribe with notifications on so you'll be able to find your way back to the channel. On top of that, if you want to join the community Discord where people are partying up on a regular basis, we're up to like 6,000 members now, and if you're looking for people to play with in Warzone instead of randoms or people with mics or not mics or whatever, go ahead and check out the community Discord. One of the first links down in the description. So the first gun we'll be talking about is the Grau, and it got a couple different nerfs, but overall in multiplayer, you're not going to notice any difference at all. When it comes to Warzone, you might notice a hair of a difference, but when it comes to the recoil, they said they changed it. This is how it looked before the update for the base weapon, the Nexus barrel, and then the Archangel barrel. When it comes to after the update, you can see that this yellow line behind it, there is a little bit more recoil than it had before, but not significant. It does have a little bit more side-to-side bounce, which can be a little bit harder to manage. But once you stack on the commando and all the other attachments, you can make it still a laser beam, so I don't really think it's going to be a significant nerf. When we get into the Nexus, you could see that it is having a little bit more recoil. When we look at the yellow, look at how close those dots were together. It was pretty close and consistent and not a lot of side to side. So I think that's what they've done, is try to make it a little bit harder to manage, or at least give that appearance of visual recoil. Same thing for the Archangel. We're not seeing a significant difference, but we are getting a little bit more side to side bounce compared to what we saw in the original one. So overall, I don't think that's a huge nerf. When it comes to the various damage ranges, if you had the Archangel equipped, you're only getting like 4 meters less in that first damage drop off and about 9 in the second, but that's still talking about having like an 80+ meter range, which is still insane for Warzone. I think this kind of still makes it from being overpowered, too easy to use, to maybe just a hair down where some of the other weapons are going to be able to compete. On top of the nerfs we've already talked about for the Grau, there was kind of a stealth nerf in there. They ended up changing the damage from 23 down to 22, which really isn't significant in multiplayer because it'll still be 5 shots to kill at that individual range. But when it comes to Warzone, that increases the shots to kill from that medium range from 11 shots up to 12, changing the time to kill from 800 milliseconds up to 880 within that middle damage range. And that's where the kilo is going to kind of step into that. But obviously we're going to talk about that in the video. So when it comes to the MP5, it was nerfed in a couple different ways. The primary way, they want to attack the recoil. What we're looking at here is this is the original recoil pattern here on the top left. The yellow dots behind this one are the original as well. And then this was the collapsible prior, and then the 10mm rounds prior. So when we look at over here, we can see it kind of all jumbled. But what we're looking at is the blue is the original recoil pattern and orange is the new one. For the base, they didn't touch it. And as you can see, it doesn't really look touched. There's always been a lot of randomness bouncing in the MP5, so it's hard to get a consistent recoil pattern. The collapsible, you can see that it does look like it's having a little bit of an increase here, but kind of negligible. They almost look exactly the same in my opinion. So I don't think the collapsible stock is a huge difference when it comes to the MP5. Overall, when it comes to the 10mm rounds though, we can see that there is a little bit of a jump here. This is kind of where the blue stops, and then it continues bouncing for a couple extra bullets. But I think overall, you're not going to notice this as a significant amount. You just might not be able to challenge those people at further ranges the way that you used to because of this extra magnitude that's being added to the recoil. As far as the overall ranges, when you're running a monolithic suppressor and the monolithic integral suppressor, you're really going to only get about a 3 to 4 meter less range for that first damage drop off, which is primarily what you want to focus on. But even then, it's still pretty competitive and it has a fast time to kill. The big difference here is this: once it gets a little bit beyond that, then maybe some are getting into that mix right in that 10 to about 13, 14 meter range, which we're going to talk about in the class setups. They also went after the no stock attachment, and right here on the left, we have the M4 original no stock, and then we have the MP7. Side to side, the orange one is going to be the new recoil, and the blue is the original. So right here, you can see they did add some recoil. It kind of stops right over here at the edge of the door, and in this one, it continued going on. Same thing with the MP7. We get a little bit more side to side bounce. It's looking like not significant amount, but you are getting more shots that go above that door frame. So it is a noticeable difference, but I don't think it's game breaking. And overall, I don't think this is a significant increase to recoil. I think maybe within about 25, 30 meters, you're not really going to notice this. Once people start to get beyond that, maybe 40, 50, 60 meters, Warzone ranges, it's going to be significantly harder to hit shots just because any difference in the magnitude is significant the further the player is. So that's going to bring us to my overall loadouts, and you can kind of see them on the left-hand side. I've already kind of named them, and there's different scenarios for each. I think that the new meta might be, this was experimental right now because the FAL did get a one-shot kill potential in multiplayer, and that basically just bumped up to the damage. So maybe if you hit him in the chest and the head, it's going to require a couple less shots. And overall, I've never been a fan of the FAL in Warzone just because I feel like the range it should excel at is medium to long range, because you almost kind of want to treat it like a sniper rifle in that regard. But for whatever reason, I just don't really like it at those ranges. It's always been more of a close to medium for me. One of my favorite floor loot weapons, because most people have 2 plates. If you manage to get chest shot, headshot, you could pretty much kill them in like 2 or 3 bullets. And it's pretty quick, fast time to kill. And you could take out multiple people with that floor loot 20 round mag. In this particular case, I'm still experimenting with it, but I think it's just definitely be worth a try. When it comes to attachments, I use the monolithic, the XRK marksman, the VLK optic. Obviously, some people are liking the canted hybrid, but you kind of choose the optic that works best for you. Personally, I'm a fan of the VLK, 30 round mag, and then the Merc foregrip. Overall, the secondary, I'm going to be using the MP7. One thing I did change with this, instead of running like no stock or something along those lines, I just go with sleight of hand. That kind of negates any of those nerfs that happen to the no stock, so I can still feel pretty comfortable at range. It is going to be a little bit slower, but I think for the most part you're not going to notice a significant difference. As far as perks go, pretty much EOD, overkill, amped for pretty much all the classes, C4, heartbeat sensor, and then sometimes I'll have a stun thrown in there. It just kind of depends on how I'm feeling. If it's going to be a late game drop, maybe I'll go ahead and get a stun, just because those are more valuable since pretty much everyone in the lobby at those points, or most of the people, are running Ghost. So my 9th class, and this is one I would call the max ammo. So sometimes people call this like the emergency class or bailout or whatever you want to call it. A lot of times what people do is they're going to run Ghost, and then they're going to run on their primary, they're going to run fully loaded because they want that ammo. But to solve that, you still get full 5 attachments here. And then on your secondary, which might not need that 5th attachment. So I have a little bit slower aim down sight with this gun, but it's going to be for further range. So it's not as important. I can go fully loaded on this. And since the M4 and the Grau, since they're both in the rifle category, I could do the same thing with an LMG. I'm going to get max ammo for both of the weapons. Even though they're sharing the same reserve pool, I shouldn't need to burn through 210 rounds plus the 60 plus the 60 for both of these weapons in a late game situation. It just shouldn't happen. So this should be like the emergency one, which I've included with the stun. So just something to keep in mind there. So this is going to be the same M4 class that I would use: monolithic, stock, tac laser, commando, and 60 round mag. I used to have more of a mobile M4 class setup with the no stock, but I've swapped that to tac laser. Obviously in close quarters, it might not be as good because you're giving away your position. At far range, tac laser, it's just a laser, not very visible, giving your direct line of sight. As far as the Grau, the bailout class or the emergency class, I'm just swapping out the tac laser for fully loaded. I'm still going to run the 60 round commando, archangel, monolithic, and it still is going to perform well up until those ranges that I mentioned: 4 meters for that first range and 9 meters for the second one. This one, I think it could still be in the meta. I think one of the things that kind of sucks with this one is the problem is an LMG, so it's slow. But as far as damage output, it does more damage than the M4. It has reasonable recoil. The downside is you're just not going to be able to be as mobile as you were before, but with the no stock attachment and kind of balance it out with maybe some more grips or whatever the case is. So for the Bruen, it's going to be the monolithic, the summit barrel, so that's the 26.8, and then the commando 60 round mag, and then we have the VLK optic. MP7, same exact class setup. Monolithic, FSS Recon, Merc, 60 round mag, and then sleight of hand. So pretty much I've gone through and changed all of those instead of having that no stock attachment. So this was an AMAX HDR. I think the AMAX kind of fits into that role. It did get a range nerf, but when you're stacking it with the largest barrel, that equates to like 3 meters, 6 meters, and 8 meters as far as its damage drop-offs. So even at the furthest ranges, that's where you're probably going to start to notice the issue. But if you're landing chest shots, not going to really be an issue, especially with the way the damage works in this gun. It's almost non-existent change in multiplayer, but when it comes to Warzone, it might be a little bit more significant as you get to those further ranges. But I'm going to use this primarily as my short to medium range option, and then combine that with a sniper rifle, and my sniper rifle of choice is the HDR. So the class setup is monolithic, XRK Zodiac, Commando foregrip, 45 round mag, and then the close quarter stock. Again, you could always swap out the stock for a tac laser. That's just going to come down to preference. This will be a little bit faster, the tac laser will, but this one doesn't give away your position, especially if I'm going to be using it more for close quarters. So it just ends up being that trade-off. As far as the HDR goes, I have the monolithic HDR Pro, tac laser, 7-round mag, and then the F-Tac Stalker Scout. The only thing I've really changed on this class setup is instead of running focus, I switched to 7-round mags. It is a little bit slower than the 5-round, not nearly as slow as the 9. And the primary reason I made that switch is because I ended up in scenarios where if I had those extra 2 bullets, I could have fired on a couple players, primarily for trios and quads. If you're only playing solos and duos, 5-round mag is still perfectly fine. Again, same perks, same lethal, same tactical. Next up is the Kilo MP7, and the Kilo is kind of one of those weapons that was really close to the Grau, but because of that range difference, the Grau was just easier to use, the iron sights, whatever. But I think the with that nerf to the Grau, it's enough to make the Kilo and the Grau kind of on an even playing field. One of the biggest difference really does come down to those iron sights, but some people were already running the VLK on the Grau, so this is going to be like a perfect transition for a lot of players. Monolithic suppressor, the Singard Arms 19.8 inch Prowler barrel, Commando foregrip, 60 round mag, and then a VLK optic. MP7, same one I've talked about. Mono, Recon, Merc, 60 round, sleight of hand. The next up is the M13, and I think this one again is very competitive with the Grau. But I think with the Grau Nerf, this one ends up being a little bit stronger at those incredibly far ranges, which it's always been. So it kind of just gets a little bit more real estate in the 80+ meter range, where before it was like more 90+. But in this case, I still like this gun, especially with the fast rate of fire. You can melt players as long as you're hitting those shots. A lot of times the bullets are going to hit in the same spot. So if you get headshots, you're going to feel like you're deleting players. But at range, it can feel like it's taking a lot of shots, because it does, but it's just kind of how the gun works. It's still a pretty fun gun to use because of the low recoil. Monolithic suppressor, Tempest marksman, Commando, 60 round mag, and then again the VLK. MP7 again in here, and keep in mind that any of these with the MP7 you could easily swap out for the MP5. We're going to get to the MP5 class setups as I go through. I just kind of mix and match, so I have a little bit of variety in my class setups, but for the most part the top weapons are still going to be the top weapons. It's just kind of how it ends up working out. Same perks, same lethal, same tactical. This one right here is an MP7 RPG Ghost class. This isn't a class setup I would actually use. This is more of, hey, you know what? I already got my loadout. Let me go ahead and swap to a Ghost class because I already have a rifle. Let me go ahead and grab a Ghost class with an MP7. And this isn't something I had in my prior class setups. I only had one, which was the Grau Ghost class setup that we see up here. But overall, we got the MP7 Ghost class, and this is what I would use to swap out just to get Ghost. Still gonna be the same class setup. I'm not gonna ever use the RPG. I would just land, get the weapon, and then swap out the weapon immediately. So I'm picking up my rifle in place of that RPG, and that's just kind of when you get your overkill class in the beginning, then you go ahead and swap to the Ghost class once the free one drops. It's just kind of a standard thing you do. M4 HDR. So this one used to be a little bit more mobile because, like I said, I had the no stock option, but this is one that I've been running for quite a while. People were asking in the comments section, even though the Grau hadn't been nerfed yet, people were asking what this one was. And this one's part of that For the Cause blueprint, which is in the store, $9.99, whatever, you get a full bundle. I don't even care how the gun looks there because most of the blueprints are kind of crappy to begin with. So what I do is I just grab that there. People asked about this one a lot. A lot of people were asking, why does the gun look like that? How can I get mine like that? And that's pretty much what I use for that. I'm really liking the platinum recently over the mask. It's kind of getting a little boring for me. HDR, pretty much the same thing. You could swap that out, like I said, for focus, or if you want the extra ammunition, go for the 7-round mag, and then you end up pretty much the same things here. If you want extra stability because maybe you don't care about aim down sight time because you're going to be hard scoping people from far away, which typically that's not how you use a sniper. You kind of spot your target, aim down sight, and then fire the trigger. But it depends on your skill level preferences. F-Tac Champion is better for that aim walking steadiness, so you can kind of move around a little bit and your crosshairs kind of stay a little bit more on the target as far as being not wiggling quite as much, especially with the aiming stability. So if I already have like an SMG handy, a lot of times what I'm gonna do is grab this one as my second loadout and then just swap the weapons there. So this one just kind of one of those things, same thing, same class setup. We're using the Mono, Tempest, Commando, 60-round mag, and the tac laser, like I said earlier, instead of fully loaded. And then we got the Grau MP5, which is the tried and true class setup, the one that I've been running for quite a while, especially since the meta has been like this for almost 2 months. So right here, again, same class setup, Mono, Tempest, Tac Laser, Commando, 60 round mag. And then for the MP5, we have the monolithic integral suppressor, which is the superior suppressor. Regardless of what anyone says, this one is the better one over the regular monolithic suppressor. It just is. Merc foregrip. I've ran Ranger foregrip in the past. I've ran Operator. They're all fairly good. They're all going to help out. The one reason to run the Merc is just because it helps that hip fire accuracy, especially since you're going to be up close and like barrel stuffing the player. You're going to want to be able to hit those shots, especially because a lot of times when you're in the hip fire, you're moving way faster than you are when you aim down sight. So you can make yourself a little bit harder target to hit if you're strafing while hip firing, especially at point blank range. 45 round mag, that's never changed. I don't really think the 30 round mag was ever really viable in Warzone unless maybe you're playing solos, just because it's not enough bullets to down multiple players. I know people could pull off a reload, but I prefer the 45 round mag, stipple grip tape, and then the sleight of hand. And that's what I use to replace the collapsible stock. So that's the only change there. I know some people are going to run tac laser, but personally on SMGs, I'm just not a fan of tac lasers because normally you're ADSing close quarters and you're kind of pre-aiming a doorway or something like that. They're going to know you're pre-aiming that doorway. You can give away your position. And I think it just leads to inconsistencies in behavior, but that's a personal choice. You can obviously go ahead and run with that if that's your choosing. So that ends up being the top 10 loadouts after the update. These aren't in any particular order. I know I have 1, 2, 3. I just didn't want to go through and change all of these. I think the overall meta is going to be a combination of the M4 HDR or the Kilo MP7 or something along those lines. I think those are going to be the main two. Grau's still going to be very strong, very dominant, because as we saw from the recoil, it's not a significant difference. I think it just might be more in line where we have 3 rifles being used on a regular basis with the sniper rifle thrown in there. But obviously that's going to come down to personal preference. Hopefully you did enjoy the video. If you did, please do me a favor, hit that like button. And if you're brand new, want to find your way back for more Call of Duty content, make sure you are subscribed with notifications on. And if you want to join the community Discord, the link down in the description should be able to help you out, find new people in the community. Appreciate all the support on the channel. Thank you for watching. As always, have a great day.